It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome in. Happy New Year, everyone. Also, happy Monday. I'm Jeff Parles. Alex White is here. It is Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Over under 9:05. Did you make it to last night?
Over. I did make it.
You did make it. Okay, good.
About 10 o'clock.
Okay, all right. Not quite. You made it. You made it to the New Year in with our friends in the Midwest.
That's right. That is my favorite tradition that I found out about a couple of years ago. It's like, oh, I don't have to wait till midnight. Watch this with New York. This is fantastic.
That's the right way to do it. This is the right way, especially when we.
Did you guys make it till midnight?
We did. Jerry made it as well.
Okay.
Sean, you make it till no. Well, Sean, you're in here. What? You're in here at 6 a.m., right? Yeah. So I can't blame our guy Sean in the corner who does a great job getting those graphics you see on the bottom done for us in the morning. Runs our audio board here on this show. I can't blame you. And also, by the way, I have to congratulate our guy Sean. By the way, Chef Sean, as I should say.
That's right.
He won a Steelers bet yesterday. He did it. Steelers went outright. Sean had the Steelers. So
that hurts me, but yeah.
Bravo to Sean. It hurt me too. I took Seattle in game, so we. Sean was the winner of the three of us on that one. So let's get into it real quick here. Yesterday in the NFL, all I will say is just to throw out some playoff implications real quick. Dallas wins on Sunday as a big favorite against Washington. They win the East because the Eagles collapsed yesterday as big favorites against Arizona. The Rams clinched yesterday in part because Seattle lost that game to Pittsburgh. So the Rams are in the Packers, who annihilated Minnesota in the final game of the 2023 calendar. They control their own destiny. They're favored against Chicago, which is a very interesting game all of a sudden, with the Bears playing some great football over the last 5 weeks. Tampa, even with their horrible performance yesterday, is in a winning in against Carolina Week 18. New Orleans, Atlanta, the winner of that game wins the division if Tampa loses. Also, New Orleans has a backdoor into the playoffs if Seattle loses to Arizona. I don't think that's impossible, but unlikely. And Green Bay loses to Chicago and New Orleans beats Atlanta. That's a scenario I do not want happening. I don't want to watch New Orleans in the playoffs. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's it.
AFC side is a little more cut and dry. Baltimore clinched the 1 with their annihilation of Miami. Kansas City clinched the 3 with their win over Cincinnati. Cleveland locked in the 5 with Baltimore's win over Miami. So those 3 are set. The 2 is up for grabs. The winner in South Beach, final game of the regular season, Miami-Buffalo. Buffalo currently a 3-point road favorite in that game.
Yeah.
Winner of that gets the 2. Miami, if they lose, will get the 6. Buffalo, if they lose, is either going to be in or they're going to be out completely because Indianapolis plays Houston. The winner of that game is guaranteed a playoff spot, whether it's the AFC South or a wild card. The loser is done. Jacksonville, favored on the road at Tennessee. We don't know about Trevor Lawrence's status yet. If they win the AFC South. If they lose, they do have some backdoor scenarios to get in as a wild card, but they're a little more convoluted on that one. Pittsburgh, somehow alive. They win, and Buffalo loses. That's the easiest path to get them in. So there you go. I hope you followed everything there.
I just have one question for you. Are you still betting the Bills this week against the Dolphins after what we saw yesterday?
I'm not touching that game. If we get north of 3, then you probably have to take a piece of Miami. But I trust. Oh, this is gross coming out of my mouth, but it's true. I significantly trust Buffalo.
You do?
Yes, and with all Miami, I mean, that was as big of a disaster as you could have asked for yesterday. Because not only did you get annihilated by a team that you're supposed to be on the same level of, you lose Bradley Chubb for the season. You have more offensive injuries. You have more defensive injuries on top of the Chubb injury. And now you get Buffalo, who, by the way, Buffalo was lucky yesterday.
Lucky.
If they played a real team yesterday, they would have lost. They
well,
did not play well.
That's 2 weeks in a row now against the Patriots and the Chargers.
But that's what they are this year.
Scary.
They're yes, when they're at their best, they look great. But they're an inconsistent football team. That's why they're here. That's why they're not already locked into the 2 seed or playing for the 1 seed.
Right.
It's because they've been inconsistent on both sides of the ball. It's because Josh Allen even though he's had some great this year, has had some pretty mediocre, like yesterday. And if the Patriots didn't hand him 4 turnovers in the first quarter, he might have lost that game to New England. So, again, I don't trust Buffalo in a playoff run, but I trust them to go to Miami and beat a battered Dolphin team. So that's what I think ends up happening. I think Buffalo wins. They get the 2. Miami will go to Kansas City. Jacksonville will play the AFC South runner-up in an all-AFC South battle. I think Houston's winning that game on Saturday night for what it's worth. And I think Pittsburgh's going to handle Baltimore, so at least the backups.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
Baltimore's not going to play their guys. Pittsburgh, 4-point favorites.
I was going to say that.
That have it up already. All right. Let's get to today. College football playoff. There's 5 games today, 2 that really matter, 3 regular bowl games. Let's start in the college football playoff, though. Let's start at the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl. Alabama and Michigan. You can't do much better than this. The Rose Bowl, 2 of college football's greatest programs. Winner goes to Houston in the college football championship game. Alex, it's 2. Michigan is favored. 45.5 is your total. The market high, let's start on the spread. The market high right now is 2.5. Now, behind us with Chris and company, the highest this number has gotten is where it's at now. It opened 2, it got down to 1, and has been bet back to 2. I'll let you go first on your thoughts here, because these 2 teams, I know you've mentioned this throughout the year. These are teams that you've had power rated high, especially the last 6 weeks of the year. And these numbers, at least to me, make a whole lot of sense.
I agree, but I'm a little surprised with the money coming in on Michigan today.
Okay.
I thought Bama would be more of a last-minute public better, come in. But I am on Bama's side. I just think that Jalen Milroe will present unique challenges to this Michigan defense that they haven't really seen, and that's with his arms and his legs. I think both of these teams are really good, but I'm also going with the coach here, and that is Nick Saban, who has won 6 straight college football semifinals. We know how Harbaugh has done in the past in bowl games, and he's 0-6 in his last 6. So until he proves something, we're going with Alabama here.
So just looking at this matchup. Now, I don't want to take into account how the Big Ten higher-end teams have looked in the New Year's Six Bowls, because we have to take them all with a grain of salt. They're glorified exhibitions. The motivational factors are different. I get that. And also key absences for both Ohio State and Penn State. But Ohio State scored 3 points against Missouri. And I know they were under third quarterback. I know Marvin didn't play. But he scored 3 points. And quite frankly, they would have been shut out if that field goal drive didn't start in the plus territory. So a little bit hard to figure out how to translate that. Penn State, who had a really good defense all year, gave up 38. Now, granted, they didn't have their 3 best players on defense, so I'm more willing to give Penn State the pass than Ohio State the pass, just because of how those games played out. Ohio State's defense was great. They didn't give up a point until the fourth quarter, and then they just ran out of gas. So Michigan, in those 2 games, obviously that Ohio State game in the Big House, no Harbaugh in that game. He was suspended. He was suspended for both of those games, actually. And it was a coin flip. That was a coin flip. That Ohio State game was as coin flippy as it gets. Michigan made the plays down the stretch. Ohio State didn't. The Penn State game, Michigan didn't throw a pass in the fourth quarter because they didn't have to, because they just ran it down the throat of Penn State. So you look at Michigan, they played 13 games this year. They're 13-0. They're the right 1 seed. But they played 2 games against teams that I think were even close to being in the top 15. Yes, I know I was ranked. They're not a top 25 team. Sorry, Hawkeye. We'll get to you later, though. This is a big step up for them, Alex. And for Alabama, who we can argue, do they deserve to be here? Do they not? I think they do. You win the SEC, you deserve to be there as long as you don't have 2 losses. And Jalen Milroe is the better quarterback in this game. And I know that some won't agree with me on that, but he can do more than J.J. McCarthy. Now, McCarthy's a better thrower.
Correct.
But I trust Milroe's full skill set in this game to win this game for Alabama. I like the Tide. And also, too, Chris asked this the other day, you're dealing with two of the four best coaches in college football. Maybe even two of the top two, if you want to go that deep. Kirby's probably better than Harbaugh, but it's close. When it's this close in the coaching matchup, it really does come down to the talent, and I think Alabama's talent is better.
And I'm glad you brought that up about the Big Ten and Michigan because they dominated their schedule, but we really don't know how good they are. They had the 51st toughest schedule in the country. So also their defense, first in points allowed, just 9.5 per game. But look at the teams that they played. So we really don't have a lot to compare that to. But Alabama had the sixth toughest schedule. They played teams. They've been tested. We saw them against Texas. They lost that one. That was week 2. But then they came out and they took care of the rest of their schedule. So I'm with you here. If you're getting points with Alabama, it's really hard to pass it up.
You know, it's also in this, we're looking to defenses as well. Now, this total comes in at 45.5. It got that up to 46.5 and has come back down to where it opened, which it's actually pretty funny that we have a game that when Vinny comes in about 20 minutes to discuss, this game's getting booked like an NFL playoff game. And it should be getting booked like an NFL playoff game. And these numbers that Chris and company opened with are right where they began, which just shows that this how sharp of a line that is to begin with.
Correct.
And the other thing is, too, it's how close in the power ratings these teams are basically for everybody. So total-wise, I have nothing. It would not shock me one way or another here. If this game comes in Alabama 21, Michigan 17, and the game goes under, I'd be shocked. If this game plays out where Alabama and Michigan are going back and forth and the offenses both show up and the defense has had a bad day and it's 38-31 one way or another, I'd be shocked either. I think that total is totally unplayable today.
See, I've got Bama 27, Michigan 24, so that puts me at the over here. And Bama went 9-4 to the over this year at a medium of 52. So I just think it's way too low for these two great offenses. And, you know, we've seen even when Michigan and Ohio State played, I think that total was the exact same. It was
Michigan and Ohio State now, Alex, have gone over 10 out of 11
That's
years.
right.
The total has just kept creeping down lower than it should. And then this year it went over in the third quarter, didn't it? And it was 30-24. It went over early in that game.
Yes.
Early fourth quarter it went over officially. But if you made me play it, I would lean to your side. We have seen with these high-level games as well that they have trended more to the over in recent years, unlike in the past where we don't have 9-6 Alabama LSU anymore like we did 13 years ago. We don't have that 21-0 rematch final where Alabama beat LSU that same year, that game of the century 9-6. But it is, all I know is this should be a great game.
Yes.
If this is a blowout, I'll be pretty disappointed. And if it ends up being a blowout, that means Alabama blew Michigan out. I don't see Michigan blowing Alabama out.
I'm with you there.
Yeah, I just don't see that side of it. All right, let's go. We'll pivot over to the early game here that's just starting, and then we'll pivot back to the other semifinal because I just want to get this discussion in quickly because there have been some moves on this in the last 10 minutes. The Requila Quest Bowl, which is the old Outback Bowl. Okay, sorry. I know I'm not supposed to give free sponsorship, but it is still the Outback Bowl, even though it's a Requila Quest Bowl. LSU and Wisconsin, rough year for the Badgers. I thought they were going to run away, win the Big Ten West pretty easily. As big of a disappointment as there was in college football for a team that's actually playing in a bowl game. 7-5. Underachieved for Fickle in his year one. I know they were trying to change the offensive scheme. It didn't really work. The defense was better as the year went along, but the offense never fully got there, as our guy Sean pointed out, haven't been in the 30s in 6 games. LSU's without their 2 best offensive players. Not a shock there. Jaden Daniels, who won the Heisman, and all of a sudden looks like may go in the top 10 of the NFL draft. Opted out. No shock. Malik Neighbors, their best wide receiver, probably the second or third best receiver in the country, depending on what you think of Awunzu at Washington and, of course, Marv at Ohio State. He's not playing, but hasn't mattered. LSU's 9.5 behind us. It just went to 10 in a whole bunch of books. Total, now at 58 behind us, 57.5 at other sides. I do like this game over. There's one other reason that I don't feel like pointing out on air, but we are dealing with LSU here. And Alex, they're just, even without the Heisman Trophy winner in this game, just look at how they played all year. Their defense doesn't stop anyone, except if the talent disparity is gigantic, which, again, we saw them shut out Army and give up 14 to Georgia State. All right, who cares? You talk about two teams that are way more talented than. But then when you go into SEC play, after September, where they gave up 14 to Mississippi State, okay, the only time LSU gave up under 30 in conference play was against Auburn, when Auburn was in the middle of their offensive fiasco phase. So this defense is horrible. Now the question solely comes down to, can Wisconsin give you enough points to get there at 57.5? If LSU gets into the low 40s, we're getting there.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I don't mind that at all. I haven't played anything yet because I do lean to LSU side, because this 7-5 Wisconsin team, you just talked about it, very disappointing. And they have opt-outs. They have 3 of their starters on defense who have opted out, and then they have their star running back. And we know they tried to pass more, but they did ultimately lean on their run game. They had a combined 11 passing touchdowns on the year. So without Allen, their best running back, who had 12 rushing touchdowns on the year, that makes me a little worried. But I do think Tanner Mordecai is a good quarterback. He missed a few games. That did, cause them to lose a few of those in the middle of there. So he's back. He's playing. I think over might be the play here.
Yeah, I would only go to the over. Now, granted, you're starting to, if you're betting the over, you may have to wait in game now, because this over is getting steamed. We're now at 58.5 across the board, except for behind us. So this thing's going to touch 59 before this thing starts in 14 minutes from now. I think everyone just woke up this morning. It's like, wait a second, we have an LSU total under 60. We just got to bet this thing over. Granted, this total did open 54.5. So it is a steady stream to the over here on this game, which, again, it's LSU. Wouldn't shock me if all these numbers go over pretty easily.
We did see LSU's backup quarterback a little bit, right? What do you know?
So we saw, Nussmeier's going to play. We've seen Nussmeier in a few spots where he, we saw him last year in the SEC title game when Daniels got hurt. Now, granted, that was a little bit of a funky game where Georgia had such a big lead that they played soft the whole second half. But from what I've seen from Garrett Nussmeier, I think he's pretty solid for a guy who's going to at least be in the mix to potentially play next year. Now, if you look at his career numbers, he only threw 33 passes this year. He completed only 51%. Last year, again, that SEC title game, he threw 3 touchdowns in the second half. But again, preparing for the bowl game, playing, it's a whole different ball game.
Right.
It's a whole different way. So you at least get yourself more acclimated. Now, granted, didn't help Brock Glenn at Florida State. Now, granted, Florida State had 38 scholarship players for that game, and that embarrassment at the hands of Georgia. But look, we'll see how this one plays out. All right, let's pivot back. Let's pivot back to the other semifinal before we get to those 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern kicks that are non-playoff games. Texas and Washington, the other one, in the semifinals. Number 3 versus number 2. Washington undefeated, Pac-12 champions, 13-0. Texas, 12-1, only loss in the Red River Shootout in a last-second touchdown from Oklahoma. Alex, it's 3.5. This is down from earlier in the month, where it opened 4, got bet to 4.5 pretty quickly in that same day. Chris put him up on December the 3rd, right back to 4, sat there until 3 days ago, and then moved to the 3.5 on Texas, total from 64 to 62.5.
And I'm not surprised to see the money come in on Washington. We saw what they've done all year, and I mean, they have the longest winning streak right now in college football. Mm-hmm. We saw what they did to Oregon as a 10-point underdog, so I'm not surprised there. But I am on the other side. I did lay the points with Texas. I just think they are the better team. Look at the total, though. I mean, this will be a shootout, and it's going to just depend on who comes out on top. I like Quinn Ewers a lot for Texas, the quarterback there. And you know me, I love a revenge spot. These two met last year in the Alamo Bowl, and Washington won 27-20. We had a few opt-outs for the Texas side, including my guy, Bijan Robinson.
Yep.
But Yeah, so I like Texas here to get it done. First playoff appearance for this team, correct?
Texas is in the playoffs for the first time. Washington, this is appearance number 2. They were in the Peach Bowl with Jake Browning and Chris Peterson 8 years ago, I want to say that. 8, 7, I have to double check that. But they were in the Peach Bowl. They lost that game comfortably to Alabama that day. But here they are in a much better spot to make some noise than that team. That team snuck in the back door, won a pretty weak Pac-12. In its swan song, this is the best season that conference has had in a very long time. And look, the one thing with Washington is they do defy the numbers a little bit because you watch that defense and you see the defensive numbers. They don't really add up because that defense comes up with the plays when they need to.
Yep.
And we saw it in the Pac-12 title game again, where Oregon came all the way back from 18 down, took the lead, and then Washington closed the game, scoring the 14 they needed to get back up double digits. Yeah, I know Oregon scored last in that game, but they were down 2 scores when they scored that last long touchdown to get it to 34-31. But this Washington team has just found a way all year.
They have.
And the one thing, and you and I talked about this before the show, the distinct advantage Washington has in this game is that head coach. And I like Sark as a play caller. There are not many guys who are better play callers than Sark. But at game management, the reason they lost to Oklahoma was because of Sark. The reason they've lost a bunch of these games with all this talent in this Sark era, they very easily could have been a playoff team last year. They were talented as everyone last year. It's because Sark is just not a good in-game manager. And Kalen DeBoer has burst on the scene. And, I mean, if Ohio State ever decides they've had enough of Ryan Day, that's the first call they got to make, is to Kalen DeBoer and try to get him back to the Midwest. So that's the one thing that could tilt the scales towards Washington, a coaching advantage, at least for me, Alex.
Yeah, so do you have a play on this one, or are you
Texas.
staying off of this one?
Texas.
Okay, but
I am
you
on
think
Texas.
Texas
I am
is
on Texas. I just think in the end, Texas's front 4 is the best in the playoff field. And they're deep as well. I just don't think Washington's offensive line holds up as well as they have throughout the Pac-12 season against that D line. And Penix, look, as great as he's been, he will make a mistake or two in this game. The question is, for Texas, if Washington's O-line does hold up, can that secondary hold up against the best receiving core in college football? Which they are. Washington is the best combination of pass catchers in the country. And they have a great tight end on top of having great wide receivers, as we know. I still think Texas has just too much talent in the end. And you mentioned Ewers. He's the reason they're going to win this game today. Him and Xavier Worthy are the 2 guys that I'm looking at on that Texas offense. Yes, I know, hot take there. I just mentioned the 2 best guys on that offense. But you're relying on your best players in these type of games. And Texas's best players, I think, in the end, are going to be the better players in this game. That's why they win. They cover. And we get a rematch of a game we saw in September in Tuscaloosa, where, of course, the only reason that I think Alabama is in this field, forget the SEC title and how bad Florida State lost. I think Alabama's here because of that game they lost to Texas and the committee not feeling it being correct to keep Texas out instead of Florida State. I think that was the debate in the end. And how could you leave Texas out, who won in Tuscaloosa, if you put Alabama in? That's why we have this 4 and not Florida State instead of one of these other teams. Thank goodness, because Michigan would have had a bye to the national title game.
So the total, pretty high, 62.5. But
Over.
You just said the advantage here, right, is the wide receivers on both sides up against these secondaries. So can they make it high enough? But I didn't play that total just yet. So we're both on Texas, both on Bama today.
Yeah, Bama. I'm not as strong on Bama.
Okay.
Like I'm actually not going to actually put that in the account.
Okay.
Texas, we're in on that at the 3.5. So, again, it's against one of my betting principles, though, in these type of big games where I'm taking the team with the worst coach in that game.
It is.
But talent wins out in the end in these type of games. And I really do think Texas's talent is that much better than Washington's. But, hey, the Huskies have defied us all year long. And if they win this game, I don't think anyone should be surprised. I won't be surprised if they pull the upset on the spread and get this thing done. I don't care that we're 2 versus 3. Just look at the numbers, as we know. All right, let's go to the other two bowl games today before our guy Vinny Magliulo comes in. Iowa and Tennessee in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. And that's an interesting sponsor for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Cheez-It and that's what we think of when we think of citrus. Iowa is playing Tennessee. You cannot find two teams with more different styles than these teams. Tennessee, we know, run and gun, wants to play as fast as humanly possible. Iowa, if we put an offense with you, me, Jerry, and Sean again. Well, Sean, I think if we put about 15 pounds on Sean, I think Sean could go out there right now and be an effective Div 1 football player. I really do. He's that big. He's that lanky. I think he could be 15 pounds on him. I think he'd actually be a legitimately good player. Sean, I have no idea what your athletic ability is. I'm just going off a build here.
He played football.
He can jump. Oh, maybe. Sean's a volleyball guy.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, he absolutely can jump.
Wow.
Iowa and Tennessee. Tennessee's a 5.5-point favorite. This is down from 6.5. Total's been bet up in an Iowa game. You got to love that, right? But it makes sense. 36-37. Ferentz is awesome in these bowl games.
Yes.
He has his team always ready to go. It doesn't matter what the talent level is. They usually find a way. And there's no reason for me to think they won't find a way again today. I like Iowa outright in this game. Because two things I think will happen in this game. There is and forget the Brian Ferentz angle, who, of course, is the OC for his final game before Kirk has to go hire a new OC because Iowa's offense was somehow even worse this year than it was last year. But there is a distinct coaching advantage in this game. Ferentz is a much better coach than Josh Heupel is. And one thing we've seen with Heupel in his time at Tennessee, and we saw this a little bit at Central Florida, there's no B plan. When things are not working offensively, Tennessee is stuck. And if Iowa's defense, now again, Cooper DeJean's not playing in this game, of course, suffered an injury late in the season, their best secondary player. But if Iowa is able to hold up in their secondary in this game, there's no reason to think they won't, because they really held up against everyone but Penn State this year. But that was the game where the QB1 got hurt and they had to put Hill in. A whole different deal at that point. But Tennessee won't have a B plan. And if there's a team that's ever going to quit in a bowl game when things are not going well, it's Tennessee. So I like Iowa outright. Forego the points, just take them outright against Tennessee on the money line here, Alex.
You make great points. I have nothing on this game. I mean, the Wolves are down 4 starters on their defense. And like you said, I know Iowa can force some turnovers, maybe get some short fields and put up some points here.
Let's go to the Fiesta Bowl before we welcome Vinny in. Oregon and Liberty. This total just keeps going up and up and up into the stratosphere. We're up to 71 on the total now. It opened 66. And Oregon, who everyone's playing today. Everyone. We're finishing this out strong. Bo Nix is going to play in his final collegiate game after roughly 14 seasons in college football. Really 6, but you get the idea. No one's going to ever break his games played record, by the way. It's not going to be possible for anyone to do that without the COVID year. 18.5 on Oregon, 71 a total. Alex, I like Liberty actually with the points.
Do you?
I do. I do think Liberty's going to be able to score in this game. So I guess this is one of those ones where normally we look to dog and under. I think you have to look dog and over if you like Liberty in this game, because they're going to have to keep up with Oregon in order to stay in this game. And that probably dictates this game being played in the high 80s if Liberty's going to cover and stay in this.
I don't know. That makes me a little nervous. Oregon's defense is pretty good, and Liberty's defense is not really there. I worry about this Conference USA because we just saw New Mexico State get killed by Fresno State, and they were the number 2 who kind of hung in there with Liberty for a little bit. So we'll see what we get from them. I mean, 2 high-powered offenses. I just worry this might be like Georgia, Florida State a little bit here with Oregon coming in to make a statement.
We'll see how it plays out.
I agree with you, though. I think Liberty will get on the board. I think they can score some points. So, I mean, we don't know. We don't know what motivation we're getting from Oregon here.
Yeah, the fact that they're all playing makes me think they're going to be ready to play. If again, if Knicks opted out and they had more opt-outs, it would have been like, okay, well, it makes sense that this is going to be one of those games where Oregon no-shows, Liberty stays in the whole way, maybe even pulls the outright upset. I don't see the outright upset coming, but again, it's a lot of points to be taking with Liberty here in this one. I'm trying to find the exact team total here because that might be the better way. I take Liberty over 24.5.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not bad. I don't mind that. Get to 27. Go that. You could also actually you want Oregon over 44.5? That's a slightly large number on that one. All right. We take a quick break. We get back. Vinny Magliulo, the Hall of Famer himself, joins us for the first time in 2024. That's next. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south of the border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book. First time here in 2024. I'm Jeff Parles. Alex White's here, and look who's made his way in after getting plenty of hugs and kisses from the patrons yesterday. Our guy, Vinny Magliulo, is
spreading
here.
the love, spreading the cheer. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy
Everybody
New Year.
We're good. It's always an interesting time here on New Year's Eve, just to be here, get through the night safe, and be ready to talk
Definitely.
football this morning is all
Yeah.
that matters.
And it's a little quiet.
Yeah. Well, everyone's still hungover and asleep, or both.
Studying. I'm sure they're
Studying
studying.
For the playoff games. You're right, Vinny.
The best part is when you find folks, like, you find them where you left them in many cases.
Well,
It's
I will say the people have
resting quietly.
The people have woken up early enough to bet the over
Yeah.
in the LSU Wisconsin
Oh,
game.
my goodness. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
going to close at 59.5
I
on
mean,
that total.
it's just, it went up, right when I was walking over here, it went up. Let me see if we're at 59.5. There we go. It was 58 when I started to walk over here.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah. Well, when I was getting my coffee. So
How many? Where's
this one is number 7.
number 7?
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, I've been up since 5 o'clock. So.
It's going to be a long day for you.
Well, yeah, that's what we do.
So
here.
did you make it to midnight?
On the East Coast, and then took a
Excuse me.
little nap, and then woke up at about 7 of here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Better than
So,
me.
The,
I made it for the East Coast and
you
I
had
was
for
out.
East Coast, and that was it.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was safe and sane.
There's I watching New York. We were watching ball drop in New York last night as well. I haven't seen Paul Anka in years. I mean, he was
He was here.
Was he?
Last week or a couple of weeks ago for the opening of the Fountain Blue?
I did not realize that.
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
But you're from New Jersey. Did you ever go to New York?
So my wife was actually in studio watching today, so extra pressure for me. Asked me the same question last night, and it's a resounding no.
No,
No.
I did it.
How long ago?
Oh man, a couple of times. But the last time
Couple of times.
was in the I think 77.
77.
Yeah, actually 76 too, because it was the bicentennial year, and it was So just to say, I did, but it was
So
it was
77 was an interesting time in the city.
well, yeah. I mean, what it's always an interesting
Well, no,
time in the
more
city,
even more so than so than usual.
I mean,
77.
Well, 77. What you had there were Yankees had won the World Series for the first time in a long time, so all Yankee fans were well represented. Of course, they repeated the following year.
Reggie hit the 3 in Game 6.
Yeah, so that was there was a lot of still Yankee celebrating going on, which as a Met fan I was full of disgust. But
Hey, you had 9 years later. It was your time, Vinny.
Yeah, I didn't make it. I was here for that one, but no, it was interesting. It's one of those things you do to say, yeah, I did.
Yeah, we never did it. Just the idea of having to be out there at 3:00 in the afternoon and then basically.
Well, I didn't get there at 3:00.
No,
I was hanging around doing other things, and then worked our way into the time.
Even though I would have loved one of those purple hats they had last night.
No,
come on.
That hat.
The ridiculous.
The hat that's 3 stories tall. But
I think you're underestimating how tall the hat is.
I mean, you need a chiropractor today if you wear that hat.
What about the Strip? I have a feeling you've never been down to the Strip on New
Yeah,
Year's Eve,
I did. Actually, I'll tell you what. When I first got here, was down on Fremont Street.
Okay.
So again, before
pre-experience, right?
Canopy.
Yeah.
And there was always fireworks at the Union Plaza. They had the fireworks display. Did do the Strip when my kids were young, actually, because I was working on the Strip, and so just wound up staying at work all night. And it was just easier than navigating traffic and getting in and out. So just got a room at the hotel and stayed there, and kids loved it.
Where were you?
I was at Caesars.
You were at Caesars at that point?
That time, and then later on at Wynn. So it's pretty cool if you have that.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with traffic and navigate everything.
I mean, there are roughly 9 billion people on the Strip.
Oh, well, they close. Obviously, they close, and it's just like Times Square, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just
exactly.
You're amongst hundreds of thousands of your closest friends.
Oh, the only time that I've done it was going into 2020. So I don't know if it's just bad luck if I'm down there and then the year just falls apart. Because obviously
you caused the pandemic. Is that what you're saying?
My fault.
Jeff?
Yeah,
it's your fault.
Going down to the Strip for 2020.
Stay off the Strip on New Year's.
Yeah,
Jeffrey.
just that's obviously the new rule. Before we get to the college football,
yeah, buddy.
Two things I want to at least bring up first.
Mm-hmm.
There is a hockey game today that features the local team.
Yes, the Winter Classic.
Winter Classic at T-Mobile Park up in Seattle looks incredible up there.
Was that a home? Oh wait, they play at T-Mobile.
Yeah.
Arena. Sorry.
Kraken and Golden Knights.
Mm-hmm.
This is it doesn't feel the same as those first few years as the Winter Classic, but for franchises that have never played in it, like both of these two franchises Vegas hasn't played in the Winter Classic.
They played outside up in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, that was I'm circling back to the pandemic here too many times right now. But the VGK in Seattle, of course, like the two newest teams in the league. First time that they're going to be on this stage on New Year's Day.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a good game. It's a fun game. I think. Has it lost? It's lost. Well, it's also here. It is. The good thing is it's at noon local time, and these teams have had a few days off to get ready for it, and I mean. It's today, right, with New Year's Day with the two semifinals, so it kind of gets a little bit lost. Although here, in Las Vegas, particularly here at South Point, where we have such a local clientele and the Knights are so popular, and the fact that it is a noon game, I think it'll draw well. Knights just under a 7-5 favorite, $1.35. So total on the game 6. But no, I think it'll still draw. It's the only hockey game of the day, and again, Knights games always draw well, and they'll get the betting attention for sure. They'll get the local support.
I hate to say this, Vinny, but I think the wrong team is favored here.
Ooh.
It is
Ooh.
almost a home game for Seattle, and they are 4-1 in the last 5 compared to the Knights, who are 1-4. So if we're going off of current form for these two teams, I think Seattle comes in as the hotter team. But I never like to bet against the Knights. That plus money with the Kraken is pretty tempting.
It's a play on the price. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Knights have struggled. I mean, listen, they got off to that great start, but particularly, had that 0-3 road trip, and then they came home, and they're in the midst of. I think this is actually one of only 2 road games in this stretch of 10. I think I want to say 9 or 10 games. They need to get healthy.
Yes, that's
particularly
the thing.
the biggest injury they have, and clearly when you watch how they have how their defense has not been particularly good, they miss Shea Theodore greatly, and he's still on IR, and the goaltending's been everything.
Well, Aiden Hill isn't completely healthy.
No,
I
he's
mean,
not.
they've dealt with ridiculous injuries between the pipes so far this year.
I mean, and they did last year as well on the Cup run. I mean, they had I think they started 5 goaltenders last year.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
But
it's a long season.
No,
and
it
this is just, hockey goes up and down. But for this game in particular.
No, I get you. You're looking at a price here. If you can get plus 15 cents or $1.20 even as we get closer to puck drop,
or maybe wait for in game if Seattle gets up early and you really like the Knights, then wait and try and get them plus money then.
Yeah. Yesterday, NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting day. Double-digit road dog wins outright, despite being down double digits at halftime in Arizona.
They've surprised have some surprising results this year.
The Cardinals. The Cardinals are 4-12.
Right.
Their wins this year
Yeah.
are against the Dallas and Philadelphia, who are both double-digit win teams.
Right.
They beat
both playoff teams.
Both playoff teams. They beat the Falcons, that is one of the many ridiculous losses the Falcons have that will keep them out of the playoffs. And they beat Pittsburgh, which very well might keep Pittsburgh out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So they have 4 wins against teams that are all going to be around 500 or better.
They are
the teams we already know are over 500.
They are the haunting team, right?
Yeah.
The team that's going to haunt teams that are either still trying to get into the playoff, even if you get in because of positioning now too. It's impacted them.
So, Vinny, I will ask you this:
Yeah.
for week 18, obviously funky week. Teams are going to be sitting guys. When are your numbers going to go up for these games? And just with the amount of absences for these teams, how do you just handle this week, which is almost in some spots almost glorified preseason?
Well, in some, but in others, I mean, you have the absolute, complete contrast, right? You've got some that are, like you said, just where are we at and where teams are looking ahead to next year. But then you've got a game like Buffalo and Miami, which is in essence playing for the division, a home, at least one home game, possibly 2. You're playing for seeding, so it's a little bit of everything. Chris Andrews, I was just with Chris, director here at South Point, in the back. Chris is working on the numbers. So you just wanted to get, first of all, the schedule set. Now that the schedule's set, right? Which 2 games are going to be on Saturday, because they actually flexed the day. Not only the games, they flexed the days. So so sometime this morning. I mean, this game here, this 9:00 game is going to kick off here in just a little bit. The LSU game. And then they'll go up, but also trying to really measure some injuries too that took place. I mean, look at the Dolphins. I have to tell you, the Dolphins have just in the last 3 games they've just gotten absolutely beat up and suffered significant injuries.
That Chubb injury is a disaster, and especially when when it happened, the game was way over,
out of reach. Yeah.
The fact that he was on the field was a gigantic blunder by Miami's coaching staff, and now you go into this game where Buffalo 3 is the number. I think that's right with the way Miami's just gotten bludgeoned with the injuries, and Buffalo did not play well the last 2 weeks, but they're better right now. But Vinny, and also too, Miami's already in the playoffs. They can't miss. They're in regardless. Obviously, they're playing for a division title, but they are still
And a home game.
And a home game.
Right,
Yeah, division title. And also for Buffalo, Miami wins and Pittsburgh wins on Saturday against Baltimore's B team, which we can assume should be Tyler Huntley and the second team for Baltimore. Buffalo's out of this.
Buffalo's out.
Buffalo goes from potentially being the 2 seed and all of a sudden being like, whoa, wait a second here. We could end up with Baltimore and Buffalo in the AFC title game, which is a big-time matchup. And then it's, whoa, Buffalo actually is not even in this field.
Well, and you look at it, right, and let's look at the Steeler Ravens game, right?
Sure.
I mean, it kind of shocks you to see that the Steelers are better than a 3-point favorite in that game. I mean, Steelers need the game.
Mason Rudolph,
clearly.
by the way, confirmed this morning by Tomlin, will start his 3rd straight game.
Yeah. Well, how could you
not?
Right?
Yeah.
You're going to put,
Pickett is healthy, by the way, he said.
He is.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've got to roll with the hot hand and the fact that he won 2 games, and yesterday I think was a big statement, winning on the road in Seattle, which
is a great win.
A very hostile environment, one of the better home fields in the league. So and the Ravens have not only secured the division, but they've secured the number 1 seed. So it's going to be this. It's a similar situation with the Niners, who have done the same thing on the NFC side. So you've got these kinds of games that have either one team has bearing, the other doesn't. Neither team does, and it's about next year and what they're looking to do. And then and the other game on Saturday. Look at Houston and Indianapolis, which is the winner goes to the postseason there as well. Possibly the division, depending on what happens.
Winner of that game is in. If Jacksonville loses, the winner of that game wins the South.
Wins the division.
Which we've talked about with those teams. These were 2 teams that had win totals of 6.5. Indianapolis lost their starting quarterback in week 4.
Yeah.
And Houston, again, rookie quarterback, rookie head coach, a team that the last 3 years was just dreadful.
Yeah.
And here they are, both of them. Winner gets in.
But 2 really good coaching jobs. Here.
If it wasn't for Kevin
game.
Stefanski and Cleveland winning 11 games with 4 quarterbacks, the winner of this game would probably be Coach of the Year.
No question. And it certainly, bears watching and playing out. But, that's the beauty of it. And then the fact that, on Sunday we'll have, all the matchups that take place there, and people will still, they'll find something to play on, and look at now, momentum too is critical.
Chicago Bears.
Chicago. Well, talk about a decision. What do they do? Right? I mean, that's
what would you do?
Well, I'll tell you what I would do. Given the draft capital that they have, I would stay with Justin Fields. And
I agree with
and
you.
I'll tell you why. Because even with the draft capital they have, especially with the draft capital that they have, in my opinion, is that they can only make the team better around him, on both sides of the ball.
Right.
Okay? The other thing is this, and we've talked about this quite a bit lately. There is such an immediacy in this league now with first and second year quarterbacks and first time, I should say, coaches, okay, that what are you going to do? You're going to get rid of Justin Fields and draft a rookie. If you don't have Justin Fields, you're expecting this rookie to come in and have an immediate impact. It's very difficult to do that in this league. The step up from the college game to the pro game is clearly on display and how difficult it is. And when you also look at the fact that some very seasoned and experienced veterans, the Minshews of the world, right? I mean, that you watch and you say, "Wow, what a difference!" So, if you have those kinds of draft picks and you've got a quarterback that's really played better, look at what he's done in the last month.
Yes.
I think you can only make it better. So my personal thought would be to keep him. Now people say, well, you have to pay him all this money. Well, you're gonna sign all these first round picks. You're gonna pay them. You have to pay. You have to pay. You can pay no matter what, Alex. Right? I mean,
Well, and you just don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people thought C.J. Stroud would be good. Not this great right off the
this
bat.
soon. Okay, fair
But,
enough.
I mean, look at Bryce Young compared to Anthony Richardson.
Sure.
Those two were completely
Yeah.
flipped. Everybody expected more out of Bryce Young, so you don't know what you're getting
Right.
when you draft one.
And
they know exactly what they have
Yeah.
with him right now.
And again, I go back to the coach as well. Now you have to give the coach a little bit more time to look. The other thing is put the quarterbacks especially aside, right, for a second, where we expect so much out of them. A lot of these owners are hiring head coaches, and it's their first head coaching gig, and they expect them to be Andy Reid. It's not going to work that way.
So the Bears are this is the hardest quarterback decision I think any team has had in a long time, because they already passed up one number 1 overall pick. Now, granted, they already won that trade. Unless Bryce Young really turns it around.
Okay.
Which I think we might be waiting a long time for that.
They have a guy that's better than Bryce Young right now.
Well, that's my point.
Right, yeah.
And they got DJ Moore, and they now have this pick.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, if I'm Chicago and Washington ends up at 3 somehow here,
okay,
I'm calling Washington up and saying, hey, you want to give us the assets we gave you for Montez Sweat back and we'll give you the
Great
number
point.
1 pick? I mean, I don't even think
Great
that's
point.
a debate at this point. If you're Chicago,
you're in a position to get a wide receiver, to get some offensive line help, to get some more defensive help. I mean, again, their draft capital is really good, and if there's any way that they can tap into the Rams scouting,
the late round picks. I mean, my goodness,
in terms of rounds 4, 5, and 6. Oh my goodness! So, but I would say I think Justin Fields has earned his right to stay.
2 today's playoff games. Alabama and Michigan first. 2, 46. By the way, it looks like there was an earthquake in Southern California not too long ago. So that's
that might be better. It's just moving to the window,
just off the coast. It's 46 and 2. Went down to 1, now back up to 2 where you opened.
Right.
I mean, just kind of a dead even game, and the way this is played out in the betting market kind of shows that.
Well, yeah. Again, and the beauty of it is there's so much. Look, we know who's playing in these games, right? And we've talked about it, quite a bit, even from when we put the games up. You book these games like they're NFL playoff games, and the folks are going to bet them that way. And if you look, we've got plenty of props. We got a full sheet of props on both games as well. Everybody's going to get involved with them. And Chris Andrews said it best too last week on Football Friday. Whoever we need in this game, and it's a two-way betting game right now, then that's fine. I mean, you've got 2 quality sides, actually 4 quality sides today, but in this one, going for us. So. We did also talk about the fact that the total would probably tick up, and that's what we're seeing now, right? So it'll probably go even north of the 46 because again, public is going to certainly be involved with these games, and they love points.
It's such a good matchup too, Vinny,
it is,
where you end up with, again, 2 of the premier programs in college football. You end up with 2 of the premier coaches. By the way, there was an article on CBS Sports yesterday that basically said, like, this could be it for Harbaugh, which makes a whole lot of sense, where Harbaugh could go to the NFL. I know there are a bunch of places that are potentially open.
Again.
And look, if Harbaugh goes to the NFL, he immediately becomes a top 8 coach in the NFL. We already saw it. Should have won a Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. Oh, should have made a Super Bowl with Alex Smith.
Who hit that those lights? Who turned those lights
hit the lights
off?
in New Orleans?
How did that happen?
One of the great tinfoil hat moments in American sports history.
Unbelievable.
And then for Nick Saban, there in the article, Dennis Dodd wrote the piece that people he's talking to that he trusts think that this could be it for Nick Saban. He could retire. I'm not in that camp.
No.
But if Alabama wins the title based off this coaching job, you have to at least give that a little bit of credence with a guy who's 70 years old.
Yeah, I would say that it's more likely that Nick Saban is back on the Alabama sideline next year than Jim Harbaugh on the Michigan sideline. But from a retirement standpoint, I don't know. I don't know if Mrs. Saban wants him retired. I mean, you can imagine having him around all day.
Yeah, I don't think Terry would be too happy with that.
No, but seriously, one of, if not his best coaching job, no question about it. A terrific. When you retrace this year and you go back to the spring and where last year the transfer portal was really taking flight more, and of course this year it's even more, right? Like about 1,300 players in the transfer portal a year ago, over 2,000 I think now on this year. And the reason I bring it up is because if you remember that there was so much uncertainty at the quarterback position for Alabama that after the spring game, Nick Saban goes out and grabbed another quarterback, right? I mean, the kid from Notre Dame. So, I mean, no, wait, was it no? So because Milroe was with the Fighting Irish, I think. So, but he grabbed another quarterback after that game, and of course, they kind of struggled early. The loss at home to Texas, which, by the way, would there be some irony if that's the
if Alabama beats Texas for the national title?
The rematch
in Houston, no less.
The rematch of a game early. And what they've done the rest of the season and finding ways to win and battling and playing their way into the national semifinals. Alex, I think there's something to be said about it.
And Milroe was benched at one point during
yes,
the
I
season,
mean,
and now we're
benched.
talking about him being the difference
Great point.
maker in this
Exactly.
game
Yeah.
against Michigan. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
I'm suspecting you like Alabama.
I do
today.
like
I
Alabama.
thought so.
Yes.
I thought so.
To the other semifinal before we get out of here today. Texas, Washington, 3.5, Vinny, 62.5. Both of us are on the horns. So,
okay.
Again, this is a fascinating matchup, though, because Washington, they're the weakest power rated team of the four.
From a power rating standpoint.
From a power rating standpoint.
And the numbers
tells you
that, right?
that.
Yeah.
But this is a team that they were 10-point underdogs here in Vegas a month ago, and they were clearly the right side in that game against Oregon.
No doubt. And again, the fact that they beat Oregon twice, and me included, I thought that after that first Oregon game, Oregon went on a mission, and Washington, you could call it escaped a few times, but they found ways to win those games, and then they got to the rematch, and they really they beat Oregon convincingly in that game. So credit them there. This is a different situation, I think, here with the Texas, the way Texas plays defense. Like, let's face it, Michael Penix is not a mobile quarterback. He's a pocket passer. Texas has, I think, the advantage on their defensive line from a size standpoint compared to what Washington has on their offensive line. So if they can get to Penix, then I think that could be the difference in the game. From the so that's a little bit different now. Even though this was a great Oregon defense this year, we saw what Penix and the Huskies did there. But I think this Texas defensive line is bigger and better.
More physical, right? And current form. I know that Washington beat Oregon, but how they kind of snuck into that position anyways. I mean, we saw them against USC where they barely hang on. They were tied in that third quarter, and we know about USC's defense. But then we have Texas, who just killed Oklahoma State in their championship game, 49-21. So
Yeah.
if all teams are going to be ready, we have
Yeah.
two great games. I mean, you can't
can't
be mad about either one of these.
No, these are two great games, and again, who was in, who wasn't. Just again from our world, give us the matchups. We'll give you the prices and have at it. Now this game did open at 4, got as high as 4.5. Now it's down to 3.5. So two-way betting, and kind of up and down, back and forth.
But we talked about that. Must be the right numbers. I mean,
I mean the Alabama Michigan number is right where you open at both sides in total.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised people took 4 with the Huskies. That makes sense. That's a clear number take.
Yeah.
And playoff games, I don't know about the total trends. I think these good games have actually trended more to the over than the under in these playoff eras. But I get why people hit this Texas-Washington game under, even though I think it's going to be an over.
I think there'll be some more
people
over
bet
money,
the over
as we get closer to kickoff there as well. And both dogs getting money line attention, more money line attention than the favorites, which is not real surprising.
On Thursday, when you're in with us, we'll be able to talk about the national title game odds, which it's going to be fascinating to see if we get a Bama-Texas rematch. I think Texas should be the smallest of favorites. I would imagine Bama would come a favorite depending on what it would be.
Well,
what happens today?
What happens today? Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speculate because here's what happens, right? If I make a number right now, and you have a number in mind, but you have a number, hey, you said, wait a second, take it easy.
Well, I would imagine Texas versus whoever wins the Rose Bowl would be very dependent on how the results come today. Washington's going to be a dog against whoever.
Washington's going to be a dog in the game, but Alabama again. Look, I've had Alabama maintained that their power rating
you never wavered.
No, he didn't.
A whole year you had them higher basically than everyone else, and here they are, one of the final 4. All right, Vinny, pleasure as always. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone. Good stuff.
Alex, good work today.
Thank
We're
you.
done.
Have a good trip.
Well, I'll be back on Thursday. We'll be ready to go. Good luck on your plays today. By the way, Wisconsin up 7-0 early in that one in Tampa Bay against the LSU Tigers. I'm Jeff Parles. She's Alex White. He's Vinny Magliulo. Shout out to Sean and Jerry, as always, doing great work behind the glass. We will see you again, regular time Thursday, 3 o'clock Pacific time, looking at the week in the NFL and the college football national title game. But don't forget, Frank Nicotero's back tomorrow for a show of 2024, noon Pacific, right here at the South Point Studio.